G'day everyone, another live broadcast today. Thought I'd pop in. I seem to like this time around about the best, which is 1 o'clock our time. I'm not sure what time that is in the US, so just to let everyone know what time I'll basically be on. New York's 10 o'clock, Los Angeles is 7:01, and London it's 3:01 in the morning, so it's fairly early if you're over in Europe. Just let me put this on quiet so it doesn't keep jingling away. Yeah, I've got stacks again to talk to you today. I'm going to talk a lot about the actual update for the A7R II, things like that. Also some other issues as well. Just say hi in the live chat. I'm just about to put hi in there for everyone just to see who's here. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes just to see who actually pops on board. And that way we can get an idea. Altric's already here. We got stacks already on board. So I'm just going to give it around about 30 seconds, guys, and then we'll actually start with a discussion. Having a lovely Corona this morning. It is a beautiful day here today. It's around about 26 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but a lovely day. So seeing it starting to get a bit warmer, I thought I'd have a drink with you guys. Seeing most of you from the States and elsewhere, it's lunchtime here, so why not have a beer? I love Corona, so hopefully I'll behave myself when I start to go through this and not get too merry along the way. Hi from Wollongong, New South Wales. John's here. Hi, David. Richard's also here. Hi, guys. Great to see you on board. There's been stacks of talks. A lot of people actually watched my initial discussion with the A7R III and how amazing that camera is going to be. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today as well, and some other things. Stuart's here from Florida. G'day, Stuart. Mickey Blue Eyes is here from Sweden. First time live chat. Nice to see you here, Mickey Blue Eyes. Good to see people that get on for the first time. I will have stacks of time for questions and stuff later on, guys. I tend to now just go back at that at the end because there's so much sort of to talk about. If I keep stopping and going through the chat, it really slows things down. Hi, Melissa. How are you? What's cruel? Just having the beer. Life of being my own businessman. I'm going to start doing this now. I'll probably get a couch and start talking to you from the couch, I think. I like Corona. Do you guys like Corona? I love it. It's good. I might try a different beer all the time and see what you guys think. Alan's here from Hong Kong. Tom's here as well. The Sanchez Nikon D850 or Sony A7R III. Well, we're going to talk about that because I'm going to show you some comparisons between all those cameras as we discuss this. The Sanchez, I think that's how you pronounce it. So we're going to have that as well. Tag the shooter. Oh, Lord, David drinking. This chat is going to go well. It's going to start. I love a drink, guys. It's just that normally it's too early, but now I thought it's bugger it. I'm just going to start drinking. Greetings, mate, from freaking cold Minnesota. At least, well, I've had to put up with that for so long with you guys, where it's been cold here and it's been so warm where you are. Now it's the opposite. So, I mean, I could take my top off. It's a beautiful day today. Oh, geez, I like Coronas. They're all right. Corona is good. Mandela, is that, what beer is that, Jim? Is that a Mexican beer or not? I'm just curious to know. I love trying different beers. Whenever I travel, I'm always trying different beers. I just love it. Whenever I go to a different country, I always ask the people, you know, what's your favourite local beer, and I'll drink that because I love trying different beers from everywhere. All right, so let's get stuck into this because Tony said he loves Coronas as well. Red wine for Susie. Oh, I love it. Susie's not here today. Haven't you noticed there's someone else in the background back there? I'm not sure if you can actually see that it's not Susie. I'm going to show you. I'm going to introduce you to Ken. I think Susie's dumped me for the day. I don't know where Susie's gone. Well, guys, this is Ken. He's probably going to share a beer with me today. So say hello to Ken. I don't know where Susie's gone. She's disappeared for the day. She might be having an affair or something. I'm not quite sure. I have to say, though, Ken's looking pretty hot back there. I love it. I've got to find Susie. I think she's dumped me. I've got to find her. I drink Speets, no mates beer. I don't know. What's Speets? Is that a beer or is it like a soft drinky one? David, it does not get cold in Australia. Well, it doesn't really, Jim, I agree, but we still feel it. So, you know, I mean, Like if we get to 15, 16 degrees here, we're all whinging freezing cold. So it's quite funny that the way we are, it's all different. Jim said, yo, Ken, what's up, dude? Ken's a really cool dude back there. He's going to keep a check on me today. Make sure I don't get a little bit out of control with his beer. Oh, I love it. Susie's gone for coffee, Richard's saying. Anyway, I better get stuck into this. I'm going to be out of control today, seeing I'm drinking. All right, so let me get rid of this pre-show, and I'm going to come back to the chat, guys, so I'm just going to clear this. So let's go to, I might just talk about new gear first, because I want to show you some of the couple of things that I've just bought, which is really cool. As you know, I've been using the HD focus a hell of a lot, and I really do like it. Now, I've only just got my Sony battery connector and also the HDMI leads yesterday. It took ages from B&H to get them, but I have just got them. So I thought that I'd show you what I just did get from B&H. Now, as you know, this is obviously on the GH5, but now I've got the Sony kit that I can start to try this on the Sony as well. But what I was waiting for, and I think this was what the holdup was with B&H, was to get this sunshade that comes with the monitor. You can see it just slips on, but it just gives you that little bit more ability to, let me just see if I can get focus. It just gives you that little bit more ability to shade it from the sun, which really is nice, and it's just plastic, so that it adds no weight at all. But I've tried it outside this morning, and it does make a big difference if you're actually trying to get focus and stuff with this in the sun. So that's another really good thing that has released, and I think this was what was holding it up on B&H, me getting the Sony gear, because they shipped it all out together, the battery, the HDMI cable, and also this hood as well. So I'm looking forward to trying it. If you look at my last video that I put up, the live shoot one where I'm shooting in the forest, you'll actually see this being used on a tripod. So it's actually being used there. But I don't think I didn't have the this adapter or this sun hood at the time when I bought that. But I really am enjoying that monitor. It's great, and I noticed there's a new update which I'll have to download today, which gives you more features to color calibrate it and things like that, so I'll have to go through that as well. So I might talk about that once that's done. I'm having another beer, guys. I'll be dancing on the table shortly. Now, the other thing I got, oh no, I love this. This is honestly, this is the best monopod I've ever seen. It's a Sirui. I think it's called Sirui. I'm not quite certain how you pronounce the name, but I think it's, what is it, Sirui, and I might put this in the link for you so you can actually see this being used. I'm going to review it for you guys, but what I love about this is the feet are so big. And I actually used this in a shoot the other day, in a dance shoot that I did, and I left the camera on it. What I'm thinking about using this, as you know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I have Manfrotto monopods, and I've also got a Benro monopod as well. This is the third monopod I've got. I'm out of control with monopods. But the issue with those was I can't leave the camera unattended with those monopods, whereas this one will actually stand with a camera pointing actually down. I might show you, just because I've got one with a... I haven't got one with the actual adapter. I might show that when I do the review. But you can actually leave it by your side. And as you know, I shoot Fusion. So the good part about shooting Fusion with this is I can have this by my side shooting video, and then I can stand there next to it shooting stills, and it actually is rock solid. And for a monopod, that's great. It also unscrews so you can use it as a mini tripod as well. It is seriously, it's the best monopod I've ever seen. So I will put that in the description for you if you'd like to have a look at getting that from Amazon, and hopefully you'll use my Amazon link down below and have a look at that. It is carbon fiber. It was around $200, but honestly, it's the best thing I've ever used. So they're the new two things that I've bought just recently. Let me now let's go to the actual news and rumours. So I'm going to go to latest news because we've got stacks to talk about today. Now, what I just noticed too that Amazon, I'm going to have a fair bit talking about the A7R III today. I'm also going to talk about an issue I've had with my A9. I've actually had to send it off to get fixed, and I'm going to show you what the problem is with that. So hopefully it's just a one-off thing, but I'll talk to you about that soon as well. So I have had to send my A9 off to get fixed. And I'll talk about the process of that in a minute, and I'll show you what the actual issue is when I actually bring that up. But if you are interested in getting the A7R III, that Adaroma have just launched a trade-in bonus to buy the A7R III, and I just noticed that they're actually offering $650 if you have the A7R version. They're offering for the A7R II, they're offering $1,200 trade-in. A7 they're offering $400. Sony A7S II $1,350. Sony A6 300 $420, and the Sony A6 500 $650. Now they're in US dollars. Now I don't know what prices you can roughly get for those cameras in the US. So chime in the questions, because I'd love to know, guys, whether you think that that's a good trade-in or not, or whether you think they're just trying to rip you off with those figures as well. But I suppose if you can't be bothered with trying to sell it and working with some shady people, and it's just a trade-in offer that is immediately there, it might be worthwhile to use some of those upgrades if you wanted to get a quick sale. Cheers. Oh my God, that beer's good, I'll tell you. So yeah, let me know what you think about that, whether you think that's something you'd like to have a go at, whether you think you'd prefer to sell it privately. I know here in Australia you get a lot of shady people when you try and sell things, and eBay you have issues as well where people don't pay, things like that, or they claim it was broken and stuff like that, whereas that would totally get around that. But whether you think for a Sony A7R II that $1,200 is a reasonable price to actually get for that. So yeah, let me know what you think. Another thing too is these links will be down below, so you can click on them after we've had this live discussion. There's another thing too, the first Sony A7R III RAW images have been released, and it's by Photography Blog Imaging, Philip Bloom, and this other Alan Popescu, I think, or something or other. So you're going to be able to download these images and have a look at them on your own machine. So that can be a real advantage if you're thinking about how good is this processor going to actually be. So you're going to be able to download those images as well. So have a look at those, and like I said, I'll put the link down below and you can download them and have let me know what you think about those images. So they're available there. Also, I wanted to talk to you about a really cool feature that they're having in the A7R III that not many people are talking about at the moment, which is this pixel shift shooting. And this article explains how this works. Your normal shot obviously takes a shot still one time, and all of the actual red, green and blue immediately go at the same time. What this pixel shift does is, if you look through here, it's actually showing that your shot 1 shoots your pixels in this range. When you do your shot 2, it actually moves the pixel 1 pixel over for each the red, green and blue. The shot 3 will move it the opposite direction, and shot 3 has gone up for one direction. So in other words, you've got a 4 pixel shift between all of your channels, which gives you this amazing 168 megabyte file or whatever it is. I'm not sure if they actually say how big it is. They're saying it's equivalent on a 99 megapixel Bay-End sensor. So it's the equivalent of a 99 megapixel sensor that you're getting. But clearly, because there was that 0.2 to 0.5 second delay, this will only be good if it's something that's still. So even if you were doing landscape and there's movement in the trees from the wind, it wouldn't be any good. But if you were doing it really early or late in the day where there's no wind and it's very still, this would give you an incredibly detailed image. Also for things like landscape, if you were doing architecture, things like that, this really would make a big difference if you didn't have moving objects in it. Obviously, if there was people moving in it, it's not going to be any good. But if you were just doing the building itself without people being involved, you're going to get amazing results doing this pixel shift shooting. I mean, the interesting thing is it's there for free. So it's great that Sony have put that feature in without you having to pay any extra for it. So that's a really great feature as well. So that's an article about that. And like I said, I'll leave that in the description down below so that you can see. Also, the wide dynamic range 4K is a really interesting thing as well. I know that's good because at least they've answered Panasonic with the basically the HLG, which is your gamma, your extended color range. Now, you might say, well, I'm never going to use this, but the beauty of this is now YouTube actually accepts that format without any editing. So there's no color correction involved when you use that. It's designed basically for just shooting, and then you can upload it straight to YouTube, for instance, and have this HLG wide gamut range directly from your camera. So it's a really good feature to have. Now, admittedly, even though I've got it on my GH5, I haven't used it yet, but it is there, and it's also future-proofing your camera as well. So it's another great thing that Sony have added in there for nothing, which is a great feature. The other thing too, it's also got S-Log 3, which is another great feature. I just wish they'd give you this on the A9. I don't understand why we're not getting these features with the A9, because clearly the A9 is also a fantastic camera. There's one interesting thing though I've read, reading all these articles from these the camera reviews, and the interesting thing is that, and this is the thing I don't understand, I've seen no difference shooting Super 35 or full frame with my A9, but they're recommending on this that for the best quality you shoot Super 35 mode. With my A9, the full frame video is just outstanding, and I can't tell any difference between using the different modes. So it's interesting that if I'm shooting APS-C mode on the A9, it doesn't make any difference. So I'm not sure what's different about that. Perhaps the sensor in the A9 is just better in that respect for video, but clearly they're not going to give us, I don't know if they're going to give us those features like what the A7R III has. They may in an update, but it's interesting how that changes in the fact that shooting full frame 35mm mode on the A9 is outstanding. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that, which is an interesting thing. Also that it is shooting 5K and it's downsampling to 4K, so you are going to get that beautiful video. And like I said before, that the A9 for me gives me the best video that I've actually shot. It's by far, it's much better than the A6500. I've found it's much crisper. The video autofocus is insane. It's so much better even than the A6500. The only thing that, like I said, that's missing on the A9 is the picture profiles, which this has. So if this new camera, if the A7R III has the same focusing, basically what the A9 has, and it's the same sensor, like giving you that same 5K sensor downsampled, it's going to be an outstanding video camera. It is going to be a really, really good camera. I'm not going to buy this camera because I'm happy with my A7R II at the moment, and I've also got the A9 and the A6500. I'm personally going to wait and see if Sony release an A700, or I'm going to see what the A7S III brings out, because I really do want 4K 60p before I upgrade. That's the reason why I bought the GH5. So until Sony have that, I might hold off and just see what they release in their next cameras. But clearly, if you're buying a camera now, the A7R III is going to be an incredible fusion type camera that is going to give you great stills and also great video. It's going to be a much better camera for not sports shooters, but it's going to be a much better camera for studio. If you need to use flash, it's going to be a much better camera for flash, because you will get the 10 frames per second, which can be a difference if you say shooting a dance recital, something like that, where people are moving fast and you need to use flash. So again, that it's going to be a much better camera in that scenario as against the A9. The A9 clearly is going to be a much better sports camera, and I do think, just looking at it, I know I was listening to Kai this morning talking about it, and he did say that the rolling shutter was still there, whereas the A9 has no rolling shutter issues really that I can actually see. So if you are shooting in electronic shutter, that can be an issue if you want quiet shooting if things are moving. So the A9 is still going to be relative there. I've had a few people ask me the differences, is this going to kill the A9? And I don't think it is, because I think there's room for both. I would personally have both. Well, I've got the A7R II and the A9, and I use them both. If I didn't have the A7R II, I would be buying the A7R III. To also use for that as well, because I do think you actually need both cameras if you can afford both, because they're both basically hitting different markets in the fact that you have the 20 frames per second with the A9, which I have used, and it is very handy to have. You have that better silent shooting with the A9. With the A7R II, you've clearly got the better resolution, dynamic range, and you've also got the better using it better for flash, for strobe work. So yeah, I think there's room for both cameras. Clearly the focusing is taken from the A9, but the A9 is probably still going to be better, and most reports have said that the A9 is still better. You have got about double the focus points on the A9 as compared to the A7R II. I think the A7R II covers 60% of the screen of your viewfinder, whereas the A9 is about, I think, nearly 100%. So clearly, if you're tracking subjects, this is why the A9 will still be better for sports. But amazing, both cameras. It's just an amazing time to be with Sony. What else have we got? So let's look at the next thing, which the G Master 400mm f2.8. There's rumours going around they think this is going to be anywhere between $13,000 to $15,000, so it's going to be expensive. But if you're also, say, shooting for Nikon or Canon, those lenses are around 10 to 12 grand anyway. So naturally, I bet when they were first released, they were probably more expensive than that. So it is going to be expensive, but if you're in the market for that lens, you know you're going to have to pay decent money to get that lens. So, you know, it's just the way it is. And they're hoping it's going to come out late next year. So once again, Sony are giving people basically what they want, and they are just going to keep getting more and more in their lenses. You can pre-order the camera now at B&H and Amazon, and I have put the Amazon link underneath the description here. You can also pre-order the lenses as well. Well, at least the 24 to, what was the lens? It was the 24 to 105. I don't think, oh, that's there, yeah. You can order the 24 to 105 lens as well. And everything I've seen about this lens, people are saying it's amazing. I know it's only an f4 lens, but once again, for me, that's perfect. I'm happy with f4 and just carry around a fast prime if you need the low light. I think this would be a fantastic travel lens. Remember, I've put a lot of videos on about the A6500 and the 18 to 105 is the best lens that I'm using for travel. This is also going to be an amazing travel lens, an amazing all-in-one lens that you can use. And from all reports, they're saying that this is better than the Canon or the Nikon equivalent. So yeah, great lens. I mean, I may get this eventually. I'm probably not in any hurry because I do like using prime so much. But I might get this for travel or something like that eventually. But yeah, that's also available to pre-order now as well. Now, this is interesting. I had a question asked me about this before, talking about Canon and Nikon and the 5D Mark IV. So this is a comparison, and like I said, I'll put this down below so that you can have a read of this yourself. But they've compared the three cameras together side by side, or just on some of the actual specifications. And there's, well, I'll go through a few of these. So they're saying the Sony A7R II is 42 megapixels, the Canon is 30, the Nikon D850 is 45, no low-pass filter. The Canon, for some reason, has a low-pass filter on their sensor, which is not good because it does affect sharpness. And I can't understand really why they've kept that on there. So looking at that, it's pretty close between the Sony and the Nikon. The Nikon obviously is a fraction higher in megapixels, but we're not talking about much at all. So they're very close if we're talking about that. ISO range, the A7R III is 100 to 32,000. Now this is its native ISO, whereas the Nikon D850 is 64 to 25,000. So the Sony is better in the higher range. The Nikon is better in 64 ISO. I do wish that the Sony had given us 64 because that can make a big difference with shooting in high light sort of scenarios. Oh, there's another thing too that I wanted to mention too about choosing between, say, an A7R II and the A9. There is one major difference for me, and I've found this is one of the best features of what the A9 gives me, is the ability to shoot to 1/32,000th of a second, because that's giving me the ability to shoot wide open on a 1.4 lens, which is incredible if you're dealing with sunlight and you want to get that lovely out of focus bokeh. So that is still an area where, this is why I'm saying I think you need both cameras. I really do think I will keep using the A7R II and the A9, and sometime next year I might buy the A7R III to supplement what I've already got. But you definitely do still need both cameras, I believe. Clearly, so if you're talking about ISO range, you're probably talking about that it's actually comparable between the A7R II and the Nikon D850. I used the Canon 5D Mark IV recently if you saw the shoots that I shot with the Profoto A1. and the noise was nowhere near as good in the Canon as what I was getting with my A9 or the A7R II. Clearly the Canon camera is behind in its usable ISO range. Even though they're saying it's 100 to 3200, I was seeing quite a lot of noise at 3200 with the Canon, whereas on these Sonys I don't get that noise at all. So the Sonys are clearly ahead with noise, and I think the Nikon is also very good with that as well. Autofocus. The Sony here is by far way better than either of these two cameras. It's got 399 phase detect, 425 contrast detect AF points. It will go down to -3. It's probably similar to what the other two cameras go. The Canon only has 61 AF points and 45 cross type, but the dual pixel CMOS AF is incredible if you're dealing with video autofocus on using the LCD on the back of the camera. I think it's by far the best system out there actually. The Nikon has 153 AF points. So clearly I think the Sony A7R III is going to win in this autofocusing area, just with the focusing points that the Sony A7R II has, A7R III has. The A9 obviously is around 600 odd points, so it's way ahead above all of them. The continuous shooting, again, Sony have done an incredible job here because they've given you 10 frames per second, which is amazing for that file size. The Nikon is only giving 7 or 9, but you've got to have a battery grip to get the 9 frames per second. And you can only do 51 RAW images. So the Sony A7R II, you're getting 10 frames per second, and you can do 76 JPEGs and 28 RAWs. Oh no, so you're shooting less RAWs on the Sony. You're getting 51 RAW images on the Nikon. So the Nikon's better if you're shooting continuous, but you do need the battery grip to run that. So, you know, I think the Sony A7R III is better in that respect. Video recording, again, I think there's no... the Sony by far is going to be the best video recorder out of these cameras by far. You've got 4K 30p and you've got Gamma Log S and 3. The Canon has 4K 30p C-Log, but you've got to do that with a $100 firmware update, and the Nikon has just got, well, also has got 4K, but the Sony, I believe, will have the best video out of these three cameras. Battery life, the Nikon, obviously, D850 is way ahead. 1,840 shots as against 530. The Canon has 900. But I don't know where they get these figures from, because I did a wedding the other day and I shot 1,000 images on that battery, and I used that all day, and that was not running and gunning, just going bang, bang, bang. I take my time, and I got 1,000 images off that camera before it switched. It just switched over at the end of the day onto the second battery. So I'm not convinced where they're getting these figures from. I've found the battery life for the Sony A9 is outstanding, and it's by far the best. Well, I shouldn't say it's better than what the Nikon was, but I think it's way underrated for what you're actually going to get out of it. Weight is 23 ounces. The Canon is 28 ounces, and the Nikon is 32. And I'm telling you, that makes a big difference. When I used that Canon 5D Mark IV with that Profoto A1, my back was hurting by the end of the day as compared to shooting with the Nikon, the Sony cameras. Price, basically they're relatively the same, but Sony have done a great job because they've keeping this under the Nikon D850. I was actually really, and I still am impressed by what Nikon have done with the D850, but I think Sony have actually outgunned them now. This camera is an amazing fusion type camera that will give you great video and also amazing stills. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you that. There's also online, I'll see if I can find that too, there's stacks of different reviews now. I don't know whether I've still got that in here. No, I haven't. There's also stacks of reviews that I can bring up showing different photographers have now reviewed the Sony A9, so I'll bring that up later on. Now, another interesting thing as well, that Sony have also, this is really interesting, on Petapixel this morning, they've actually said now that Lens Rentals have actually said that Sony have now claimed the #2 spot. So this wasn't just that other information last year that they were saying Sony is now outselling Nikon, but this is Lens Rental, and they're actually saying that Sony now have passed Nikon in the lens rentals that are actually there. So this is incredible. So it shows you how well Sony are actually doing. The Sony has also passed Nikon at the largest online camera gear rental business in the US. So that's amazing. So they're saying now it's #2. Canon obviously is still #1, but Sony has overtaken Nikon, and I don't think they're ever going to look back now. I really don't. And when you think about what they could probably release with the A7, I better bring this back because I wasn't showing you. When you think too that Sony have come back with this A7, what they'll release with the A7S II is probably going to be outstanding. Now, just to go back, because I'm not sure if I was actually showing you this live, let me bring this back for you, just so you can see these image sensors and things like that. ISO range, you can sort of see there, autofocusing, just so I'll bring this up for you. Continuous shooting, video recording, battery life. Like I said, I'll put this down below so you can actually have a look at this as well. But yeah, they're great features. I mean, I think that like I said, they've really hit this camera out of the ballpark, I think, with the A7R II, and its introductory price is really fantastic. And then that's the lens rental article talking about how Sony have claimed the #2 spot as well. So let me just bring up questions because I'd love to see what you guys are having to say. So let me bring this back. So fire away questions, guys, because I'm going to answer anything you want to know. Cheers. So let's have a look. Melissa said some of us are not allowed to drink on the job. I love it. What are the questions? Most people are just saying hi. Tony's here. Good morning, mates. Well, Angel Digital said, any idea when they are planning to release the A7S III? Well, I've heard rumours that it's going to be springtime in the US. I noticed with Kai when he was talking this morning on one of the videos I watched on YouTube when he was reviewing the A7R III, he actually said on it this morning that there was a Sony rep behind him and he said something about the A7S III and he said not soon. So there is going to be a delay on that. I don't think that Sony are going to release the A7S III until they can basically shoot 4K 60p. So they're going to have to address some of the issues with overheating particularly. Whether they're going to change the body on that camera to allow for that overheating is going to remain. No one's actually discussed yet how the overheating is with the A9. So we've still got with the A7R II. So we've still got to see how it works with that. But like I said, I've been happy now with the Sonys. One thing I'm disappointed on with the A7R III is that they've got rid of the Sony apps. So there's no app store anymore. Now you might say I never use it, but I do use some of those apps. Particularly, I love, I can't remember the Reflections one, which gives you, like you're using an ND filter in the camera. I've actually used that before. Oh, thank you so much. I've just had a $20 US donation. Who was that from? I'm just checking. Delta Dave, thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate that. Let me just bring this back up to here. So we can answer this question. Yeah, we're talking about the... they've not used the Play Memories apps, and I do think that's a bit of a bummer because I particularly like using the Play Memories hack, which is what's given me the ability to shoot now with this A6500 without a time limit on it. And that's one of the reasons why I went for the GH5, because I need to be able to leave that camera unattended and let it just run for a wedding or something like that. And it may go for an hour and just leave it running continuously. At least with the Play Memories app hacks, you can use that ability to actually, get that done. So that's one reason why perhaps I might not sell some of my older Sony cameras so I can keep that Play Memories hack on it to give me the ability to shoot continuously without having it shut down. So I may probably keep my A6500 or even the A7R II because I can put those Play Memory apps on it. I don't quite understand why they've got rid of that. It's interesting. I don't know why. But I think the A7S III is going to be sometime spring US next year because I do think it's going to basically... they'll have to give these two cameras a time to get their foothold, which is the A9 and the A7R III. And I do think they won't want to take away from those sales, but also, like I said, they really have to answer the 4K 60p That's why I'm not sort of jumping at getting the A7R III for me at this stage, because I really do want 4K 60p. After I've used it on the GH4, I don't want to lose that feature. So I am going to wait and see what Sony release next. Perhaps an A7R might have it, or the A7R III you would think would have to have it. Plus, I'm also hoping they up the bit rate from 100. At the moment, it's only 100. I'd love it to go to 150, because that tends to be the perfect sort of trade-off in bit rates. So I do hope that obviously the A7S III or perhaps the A7R is going to give you 150 megabits per second. I mean, the GH5 does 400 megabits per second. And also 10-bit can be important if you're shooting gradations in skies. So again, you're going to have to wait, I think, for the A7S III for that 10-bit as well. Let's have a look here. What else are people saying? Tag the Shooter said, "Oh Lord David, I was going to wait for A7R III deals, but I pre-order A9 and A7R III at wedding and events going to be spectacular." Well, it will be. Look, if you've got the A9 and the A7R III, fantastic combo. Like I said, I'm using that now, the A9 and the A7R II, and I love that combo as well. So the A7R III is going to be a little bit of a step up again on that. So great combo, and eventually, like I said, I may upgrade to that eventually. Jim's just saying, hello all, keep drinking. It will make you speak your mind. That's Tony. What else? Jim said, at David, how does the battery do in the sun? What battery are you talking about, Jim? You're talking about the A9? Because it's fantastic. I've had no issues with the A9 at all. It's fantastic. It's an amazing camera. I am to Brown said, Sony A7S III announcements will be 10 months. And you might be right, Tony. I think it will be a while before they actually do that. Sony clearly have to address some issues before they bring out that camera. If they have overheating issues at 4K 30p, there's a massive step up going to 60p. So they're going to have to either bring out a brand new processor to allow that to happen that runs a lot cooler, or they're going to have to say have a bigger body with a better heat sink, something like that. So we have to wait for that, but it'll be worth it. It's going to come. We just have to wait for it. Keith said, okay, A7R fanboy. Nick and I said beer, love it. Nick and I said beer plus gas equals A7R coming soon. No, I'm not ordering the A7R III, guys. Honestly, I'm not ordering that at least till sometime next year. I want to wait and see what the A7 III has, the A6700 and the A7S before I jump the gun. I'm still happy with what I've got with the A7R II at the moment, and you know, the A6500. I have the Sirui smaller version, and they are the best monopods. They are Sniper V. It's honestly, that is the best monopod I've ever had. You don't need a tripod with that. It's awesome, as long as you don't, you know, I mean, you wouldn't want to walk away with it on a windy day, but if you're using it in general conditions, it basically replaces a monopod. It's fantastic. I love it. It's beautiful. Ben Ashton, it's a beast. Keith said, look for a A7000, Aka Minolta 7000. Prices seem very low. I know, I'm surprised actually how low the price of the A7R III came in at. I think it actually seemed... Oh, you're talking about the prices for the trade-in. So Jim, you're saying it's a rip-off. Oh, okay. I don't quite understand how the US dollars work, so it's good that you guys let me know that you think it's a rip-off. So basically what you're saying is you'd have to be desperate to use those trade-in figures from Adaroma for trading up that camera. Please, guys, too, just as a mention, too, if you can give me a like, a thumbs up, I'd love that because it does support my page. I'd love you to give a support to me because it does get more people on board. So if you can, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. What else have we got? After 4 Coronas, probably a good trade deal. I'm going to have another one after this. Once I start, that's it. I'm dancing on the table. I'll probably be dancing with Ken shortly. I'm going to buy the A7R III for lenses. Would it be best to pair 24-70 GM or have 2 to 3 prime lenses, main work for events, photo and video? Well, Alan, if that was me, I'd have prime lenses, but that's me shooting, and that's the way I love to shoot. My favourite lenses are the 35 1.4 Sony lens and the 85 Batis. Now, that could easily be replaced with the 85 1.8 Sony or the 85 1.4 Sony, whichever way you'd like to go. But they're my two favourite lenses that I actually use. And I can shoot 99.9% of my weddings just with those two lenses alone. And there's just something I love about using prime lenses. It makes you think more about what you're shooting. You've got to use your feet to walk back and forwards, to think about framing your shot. And I just like the way that works rather than just having a zoom. And I shouldn't say this, but I feel like I'm being a little bit lazy when I'm using a zoom lens. And I just love the way the primes look. But that's for me. You can't go wrong if you're using a 24-70 G Master either. But if it was me, I'd be buying 2 or 3 primes, yes. And in that, if you're getting 2 or 3 primes, I'd also get the 55 1.8, because the 55 1.8 is the fastest focusing Sony lens in low light of any other lens that there is, I think. It's superb in low light conditions, the 85 1.8. It's outstanding. That's my favourite lens if I'm dealing with low light. Jim said, I do pixel shift when I get a wedgie. Filani said, what's up, Dave? Tony said, when I get it, I'll be using the Sigma lens. And there's nothing wrong with Sigma lenses either. I've heard they're nothing but good. Like I said, I've only bought the native lenses because I need the best focusing that you can get. And the native lenses will 90% of the time always focus quicker than what a adapted lens is, or a third-party lens. Alan said, thanks, Jim. Just comparing the 24-70 f4 to the 24-70 GM. I've got the 24-70 f4, and I use that in studio all the time, and I really like that lens. Clearly, it's not going to be in the realm of the 24-70 GM, but it's still not a bad lens. Now, Keith also said, who divorced their wives already for the new Sony A7R III, who just lost their car because you can't make car payments? I love it. Tony said, I shop at Adaroma. I'm from LI in New York. Oh, thank you so much. Just had another donation. Just let me check who that was. I just want to see who it was. Jim, thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate that. What else have we got? Alan, just an opinion though, let us know when you unbox the A7R III. Oh, that's talking to someone else. Casper's here, so hello Casper, how are you? Richard said, I'm going to upgrade from my A6500 to the A7R II. Well, that's really interesting, guy. That's an interesting scenario. So are you going to sell the A6500? I suppose if you're dealing with just having one camera that will give you both, there's nothing wrong with upgrading from the A6500 to the A7R II. And I think probably you'll find that the video autofocusing on this camera, if it's anything like what the A9 gives you, is going to be just as good, if not better, than what the A6500 is, so I can understand that. The only issue, I suppose, is your file sizes, but you can shoot in crop mode, which is going to give you a similar file size to the A6500 anyway, so that might not be such a bad move if you can afford it. And that's what I often do with my A7R II. When I'm shooting with my A7R II, I do actually shoot with that in crop mode often, if I don't need the full file size. Now, before I forget, because I did forget about this, I want to show you this issue I'm having with the A9. I've had to send over my A9. I'm just going to put the questions to halt for a second. Yeah, I've had to send my A9 into Sony repair to get serviced. I had an issue with it the other day, and I'm going to bring it up and show you what the issue is. So if we look at this image here, this was one that I did. I did a floating shoot the other day. Now, you're probably not going to be able to see it at that resolution, what's actually going on. But if I zoom in, you're going to see what's actually happening here. So I'm getting these corruption marks that are appearing across the images, which is really weird. And they're actually all through the image itself. Now, luckily, it's not every image. It's probably every second or third image that it came through, and I couldn't see this on the viewfinder when I was actually doing the shoot, and I'm not sure whether there's any up the top. Sometimes they're even coming up the top, sometimes they're coming down the bottom, and sometimes they're right through the middle, like you can actually see what's going on through here. So this has been a real issue that has come up, and like I said, I've only noticed it in the last 2 shoots that I've done. I did a shoot the other day and I noticed it. What's actually happening when I'm bringing the images in, they're halfway through the image on the import in the pics, in the previews in Lightroom. It's half the image, and then the other half of the image is giving a sort of solid color block. And I thought, whoa, that's weird. Why is it doing that? And then when I imported the images in, you're getting these corruptions that are showing inside the the actual image itself. Now, I don't think they're on the JPEG file. The good part is with the A7R II, this is where, for instance, if I was shooting a wedding, and this did happen in the last wedding I did, but it only happened at the end of the wedding. So the camera then must have started to have a fault. If I was only shooting with one card, you can imagine if I'd shot a wedding and this happened. But luckily, I don't think I back up the second card to JPEG, and it didn't show in the JPEGs. They weren't there in the JPEGs. So I'm not sure whether this is potentially just the card that's causing an issue here, whether it's the actual writer in the camera that's causing an issue. But anyway, I've sent it off to Sony to get it fixed. So yeah, that was a really interesting thing. I'm going to go back to questions in a minute. So to let you know what happens now, I contacted Sony about this when I noticed that it was late at night when I put these in the camera. It was there when I looked at it, and I contacted Sony first thing that morning. At 9 o'clock, I think I put the order into Sony to say that I needed the camera looked at to get repaired. By 9:30, they'd sent me an email with the pickup details, where to get it picked up. I organised the courier. The courier came to my house, picked up the camera, and now it's gone off for repair at Sony. Now, Sony have told me if it's going to take any longer than 3 days to repair, once they have a look at it, they'll look at it over the next couple of days. They'll send me a loan camera while that's being looked at. So again, I'm not angry at Sony about this, because these things happen. Like anything with hardware, there's a potential for something to go wrong. I'm just happy, and this is where, you know, don't listen to people. I know there's some countries that haven't got Sony Pro support, but Sony Pro support have been fantastic with this scenario for me. The system is working amazingly well. I'm not upset at Sony at all, and I think the systems work great for me. It's like anything, you're going to have issues with hardware, and it'll be fixed. So I'm comfortable with the fact that it's actually going to get fixed. So I'll let you know how that goes, and I'll let you know what the problem was when they tell me what that issue is with the A9. I'm missing the camera already though, so it's been gone a couple of days. So I'll let you know what happens with that. I'm going to go back to questions. What else have we got? Jim said, my wife has assured me I will need a gender change if I buy the A7R III. I'm going to have another beer and I'll probably order it, and I'll be in so much trouble when I get home. I hear compressed RAW or uncompressed RAW. Yeah, I think it gives you both, and I don't think it slows down the camera at all either way. There's no raw light though, which is a bummer. I really do wish that Sony would release a light RAW, because that would be a great feature to have. I'm not sure why they don't give us that option. I'm looking, Altric said, I'm looking to go full Sony and have the A7 II. The reason I want to do the A7R III is because I don't want to do the A7R III is because of the file size. And that's the thing you have to make a decision on. I do believe, honestly, the perfect file size is the A9, which is a 24. That's why, personally, I might wait and see what the A7 III has to offer. But sometimes having that crop is an amazing thing to have. Like I showed those files recently where you had the B that you could see when you cropped in, and and that works so well. So sometimes having resolution is an amazing thing. And to be honest, if you're retouching, like if I was doing studio work, I will always shoot with my A7R III, because I need that resolution, and it's so good when you're dealing with retouching skin, things like that. The more megapixels you have, the better. So there is definitely a case for the A7R III. But if you're talking about a general camera for, say, wedding work and events, things like that, the 24 megapixels, honestly, is the perfect size to go for. So if that's all the work you do, I probably wouldn't recommend the A7R III. Even the A7R II, I'd probably wait and get an A7 III when that's released. Because that 24 megapixel file size is the best size you can for general type work. If I shoot a full wedding with the A7R III and I'm shooting at full res all the time, it does affect... I mean, the file sizes are massive that I'm bringing in. It's just, hundreds of gigabytes, and it ends up being ridiculous, whereas 24 megapixel is manageable. And remember, you can shoot in crop mode with the A7R III, but as soon as you shoot in crop mode, you lose the wide lenses. You lose that full frame advantage, which can be an issue sometimes if you want to shoot wide. So that's something you've got to consider. So if you're shooting wedding and events, I probably wouldn't, and that's all you're shooting, I probably wouldn't go down the A7R III line or the A7R II line. I'd wait and see what the A7 III is released, because of that file size is that perfect size. This is why I'm saying the A7 IV is the perfect wedding camera. That is still, I believe, the best wedding camera that's available on Earth at the moment. But if you're dealing with studio work, landscape, the A7R III is the way to go. What else have we got? Sony A9 is still king in my opinion. That's Casper. What else have we got? Sniper V said, don't know enough about that. Got to believe there is an option to suit you. I think he's talking about other things. I'm not sure what that's about. He's saying there that Sniper V said, thanks, that's a bummer. Shot 800 images at an event with the A7R II last weekend and it was over 300 gigabytes. And that's the problem. If I shoot weddings with it, the memory I have to use to save files is just way bigger. 24 megapixel is by far the best size for weddings and that sort of work. Nikon, I said, if I go full frame, would I get the 24-105 f4? I would get the 24-105 f4 lens. Friend has a Canon lens and really like it. Everyone I've known that has that 24-105 lens loves it. And like I said, it's basically the same lens on the APS-C as the 18-105. And like I said, that's a fantastic range to carry around with you. And it'll be really good for video too because it's stabilized. Great lens. And I agree with you. If you had to have one lens, that might be the lens that you actually could use. And if you're doing it in video and then you start to use clear image zoom, you know, you're getting over 200 mil. So, Nisala said, I'm actually surprised that Sony updated the A7R before the A7 II. I was a bit surprised about that as well, actually. What else have we got? Tony said, Sniper V, you can put all JPEGs on one card and RAW on the other card. RAW is king, but you'll maximize the file sizes. I shoot RAW on my second card as well, just as the backup. And like I said, with that corruption that I've had, I'm glad that I did. Nisnal said, somehow I feel Sony has something in development to compete better with the Canon 1DX and the Nikon D5. I'm not sure about that, but they're definitely going to compete with the GH5, I'd say. And that's the A7S III whenever it's released, or the A9S. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not an A7S III. I wouldn't be surprised if that's an A9S. I've got a feeling that they're going to have the A9 as the ultimate photography camera, and I've got a feeling that the new Sony ultimate video camera is going to be the A9S. That's just what I'm thinking that they're going to do. It's going to have, like I said, a different body, everything else, and I think they're going to target that at the high-end video professionals. It's going to be super expensive, though. Tony said, hey guys, have a good night. It's 10:30 in New York and I'm getting up in 3 hours, so he's off to bed. Night, Tony. Sniper V said, everyone is saying well over 1,000 shots on a battery. And that's what I'm getting. I'm getting 1,000 shots on a full battery with the A9. So I'm not sure where they're getting these figures from, to be honest. Delta Dave said, Nikon really missed the mark by not putting an EVF in the D850. I know, I don't understand that either, Dave, why they didn't do that. That would have been a killer camera if they put an EVF in that camera, and I don't understand why they didn't. It's still, like I said, when I used that 5D Mark IV, I hated using the normal viewfinder. I hated it compared to using the EVF. You know, if you just wanted to immediately check what you were shooting, you had to sort of play around with the buttons. And it just wasn't the same. I couldn't check exposure. I mean, I could be using the live view monitor at the back, but the problem is if it's bright and you know you can't see the monitor, you just can't beat the EVF. Mark said, hey guys, thanks for all your help, David. You helped me decide on my next new body. Just pre-ordered the A7R III. That's good, Mark. You'll love it. I mean, like I said, I may get that eventually. Mike said, hi, David. Did you already put in your order in? No, I'm not getting this one. I'm going to wait and see what happens. Mark said, I've been shooting mirrorless since 2014, can't get back on the OVO. I know, I agree with you totally. I heard that Sony is working on 7 long-range primes at the moment, one of which should be released soon. That's right, they will be. They're going to release multiple lenses eventually. It's just time. Even still, Sony have got an amazing lens lineup now. Are you sure you can't select a smaller RAW? I'm pretty 90% sure you can't, yes. You'd have to work in APS-C, Altrek. Jim said, Thor Johnson, just saw your queue for David Re 85mm. I've not compared, but bought the GM 85 1.4. Love it. Yeah, it's a beautiful lens. What's the highest shutter speed? 1/8000th of a second. That's the main difference between this and the A9, I think. Look, they can't give you every feature that the A9 has. Clearly, if they did that, no one would buy the A9. That really is a game changer for me, and I have to be honest, I'm using that a lot now. I love shooting wide open. That's one of the things that I love to do, is to shoot wide open. And this gives me the ability to shoot wide open in bright days at 1.4, having that 1/32,000th of a second. So I would never want to lose that feature now that I've used it. So that, for me personally, is a massive feature that I use in the A9. It is just stunning to be able to shoot a bride or a model at 1.4 or 1.8 in bright sunlight is incredible. And I love that without using an ND. The only other option you have with any other camera is to use an ND, or you use high-speed sync and you overpower the sun and stuff like that. But I don't want to do that all the time. So being able to shoot at 1/32,000th of a second with the electronic shutter is amazing. So that is one difference between the A7R III and the A9. Yeah, so the A7R III is 1/8000th of a second. What are the RAW file sizes? Not sure what they come out to in RAW file sizes. Someone else may know. The new A7 releases after this will have to be separated 5 to 6 months at least spacing. Not a good marketing move to release two major products so close together. I suppose they're different markets, Mel, though, so I'm not sure that this really is an issue. Like I said, I don't think this is going to affect the A9 sales because they're totally different markets. The A9 definitely is more targeted towards the wedding, and like I said, I think it's the best wedding camera in the world. The A9 is targeted more to that side of it in sports, whereas the A7R III is more for your studio, landscape, high-end sort of retouching type work. Yong said, Play Memories app on the iPhone isn't very good. Wi-Fi connection goes in and out. I've been quite happy with the Play Memories app, to be honest, but I might be just lucky, I don't know. Delta Dave said, why does the GH5 get away with the unlimited record time? It's because they pay the tax, Dave. The reason why Sony and all the other camera manufacturers don't allow you to have this uninterrupted recording is because they have to pay tax, I believe, in Europe, to have that unlimited recording time. The Panasonic obviously pay that tax. So that's the only reason why they give you that ability. And that's one of the main reasons why I bought the GH5, because I love the fact that I can just leave it and not have to worry about that. Now, yes, the Play Memories apps gives you that on the Sony A7R II and the A65 and A6300. You get that with the Play Memories hack. But clearly, like with the A9, that's now gone, and it's gone in the A7R III. So you've no longer got that option. So you have to have someone there ready in case if the camera stops to press record again. So that's a big thing for me. Yeah, it's just a tax thing. I wish Sony would improve their apps. Well, they're probably not going to now if they're not releasing any of these things. Oh, they might still for, say, for instance, the A6700 may have Play Memories apps in it. Mel said the A7S III will need a more improved BIOS processor to muster a 4K full readout at 60p, even at 12 megapixels. There's also the need to manage the heat. And that's right, Mel. That's the reason why I think it's taking so long to release this camera. It'll come, but clearly they're going to have to wait until this camera will not overheat. And they definitely need 4K 60p. So you've just got to wait it out. I wonder if there is also a limit on their sensor production capacity. There could be because of the earthquake that they had there. Sniper V said, I think the A7R III for me, although wondering about the A7 III, but don't think it will have dual cards. I think all the cameras now are going to have dual card slots in it. That's what I believe now, apart from the A6700 or A6500 replacement. But I would be surprised if the A7R III doesn't have the dual card slots now. I think it has to have dual card slots. He's talking about the A7 III, Jim. I just picked up some Coronas. I'm nearly finished. I need another one. John said the A7R III will require new batteries and grips. Yes, it will. I don't know whether the A7 IX battery grip will fit it. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I don't think it will because I think it's a different camera body, but we'll see. They're saying it's more related to the A7R II battery camera body, so it's going to be interesting to see. What else have we got? Jim said, I meant the exposed battery on your G8 monitor. Oh, in the sun. Yeah, fine. I haven't had an issue with that. Yeah, so you're talking about this battery that's on this here. Yeah, I haven't had an issue yet with it overheating. So, but remember, I'm only just coming into our warmer weather now, so I'll let you know through summer. Mel said, we'll lose respect if you don't get the A7R III. I'm not getting it, Mel. Not yet. I'm waiting to see what happens in the future before I upgrade. Like I said, I'm still happy with my A7R II. To be totally honest with you, I'm only using my A7R II now probably 20% of the time. I'm using my A9 80% of the time at least. So I can't justify at the moment really upgrading. There's no reason for me to do it at this stage. I'm going to see what happens in the upcoming cameras. Clearly, if there's an issue with my A7R II, I'll then get the A7R III because I like that resolution as my second camera. But not at this stage. OMG Film said, no need for the A9R now. They upgraded the batteries and dual card slots, but I think this is a smart for Sony. No need for an A9 variant, just A7. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an A9 version now either. I don't know what they could put in it, really, to do that. It'll be, like I said, I think the next A9 is going to be the A9S. That's what I believe is going to be the next A9 camera. Tag the Shooter said, you're supposed to drink... I know, I should have grabbed one. I've got them. I've got a tree outside that's got them on there. I was in a rush to get this started. I know I usually put lime or lemon in there, Tag the Shooter, but I haven't got that at the moment. I should put it in. When I have my second one in a minute, I might put that in. Mel said, Delta Dave said, what will the haters have to say about Sony now? They'll find something, Dave. Look, trust me, they will find something that they have. They'll immediately go back to the lenses again. I just ignore them now. I mean, it's just crazy. They'll always hate about something. It's just ridiculous. Sony clearly now is the best system out there. It's incredible, and they're giving you more and more and more each time. Even if Canon and Nikon release the cameras, they're in development now. But what's Sony got in development now? Like, it's going to take probably another 6 to 12 months before Canon released a mirrorless camera. By that time, they're going to have a new camera from Sony that's going to come out. I think they've missed the... I'm just reading Jim's comment on that. He's put towards Susie's breast augmentation. That's because I've got Ken back here. Would you want me to give Ken a breast augmentation, Jim? I love it. Mel said, I'm starting to suspect that there might be an A9 at the US 4000 mark. It might break the 50 megapixel barrier. Well, they could bring out one that's something like, 80 megapixels or something. I don't know, but that's something I wouldn't be getting. I don't need anything larger than the 46 or 42, whatever it is. 42, isn't it? I don't need anything bigger than 42. I'm so happy with that. Having said that, though, I'll bring it out and I want it. Mark said, I think Sony had to release the A7R III to combat the D850, and they did. That's why this has come out. They had to combat the D850. But I don't think there's anything cynical about this with Sony. This camera would have been in development for 12 months. And I've heard that a couple of times, people saying that they brought this out just to combat the D850. I think this was already obviously in the... it takes 12 months at least to bring these cameras out. So it's just the timeline, the way it works out. But they have combated the D850 and they've beaten it in my opinion. The grey A7R II just dropped 1878. Wow. See, they're going to get so cheap, and that's a great camera for that price. If you're in the market for a good cheap second-hand A7R II or even a new one they're going to drop, it's an amazing camera for what they are, guys. Jump on it. Let's have a look. Mike said, guys, seriously, what's wrong with 42 megapixels? It's enough. And I think you're right, Mike. That's ample for me. I mean, look, we may change eventually as computers get faster and storage gets cheaper. But 42 is by far enough for me. I'm happy with 24 megapixels, to be honest, most of the time. OMG Film said, oh, I get what you mean now, but Sony is sort of shooting their foot now because the A7 Mark III will flop if it doesn't have dual... Oh, you must be talking about the A7 II. or A7 III will flop if it doesn't have dual battery slot. I think all the new Sony cameras are going to have the dual card slots now, apart from the Sony A6000 series. I don't think will have. I'm thinking of jumping out of Canon into the new Sony A7R III. If you could only use one native lens, what would it be? It'd be the 35 1.4. If I had to choose Angel Digitals, if I had to choose just one lens, it would be the 35 1.4 lens. That would do me for everything that I need. I could get away with just using that. And clearly, if you were doing it on the A7R III, also you have that, you know, the croppability that you could crop that in to close as well. So if you only had one lens, that would be the lens that I would buy if you were talking about a prime lens. Andrew said, just joining in, A6 500 with the A7R II equals A7R III. What are your thoughts? You're probably right. I think this is the perfect mix between the A7R II and the A6 500. You've got the focusing of the A6 500 or the A9. You've got the video features now which have been expanded. So it's the perfect camera in that respect. So yeah, I agree with you. He said, I had the A6 500. Should I keep and save my money and buy the A7R II? It depends. I mean, I'd still be happy if I only had the A6 500. But yeah, look, the A7R II is clearly better if you're talking about stills, but the A6 500 is better than the A7R II in video. The A7R III beats them both. So if you can afford the A7R III, I'd get that. As long as you can handle that file size like we were talking about before. Mel said, nothing wrong with 42 megapixels. I'm happy with 42 megapixels from a marketing standpoint. One can cover certain price points to cover what the competition is opting for. I try to think like a firm. I love 42 megapixels for cropping, and I do too. It's incredible. And remember still, it's a dynamic range. If I definitely have a shot where I need the dynamic range, I'm going to be using the A7R II or you'd use the A7R III, which is a stop better again. Mel said, Mike said, I sure hope the megapixel race is over. I don't think it's going to be. I think they're still going to be pushing it in their higher end cameras. GMG Film said they should have made the A9 a medium format. That's coming, but Sony have said not yet. So they are going to do a medium format camera. I think the Fuji has a Sony sensor in it, their medium format camera. What else have we got? I think a lot of people are going to dump their A9s, Altric. I don't think so, Altric. I really, there's no way I would dump my A9 for the A7R III. No way would I dump that. That 1/32,000th of a second is worth it enough for me. And also that full coverage on the viewfinder. When I did a concert the other day, which is a big job for me. I did a live concert shoot with dancers. And to be able to track those dancers across the dance floor with 100% basically accuracy with the full screen. See, the difference between the A9 and the A7R II is this type of shoot. Because, for instance, I get full coverage almost of the viewfinder where it'll focus from one end of the viewfinder to the other. So the whole sensor is getting that autofocus on it. The A7R III is 60%. That can be the difference of getting a shot with a dancer jumping across a stage. So clearly, they're different markets. There's no way I'd sell my A9 for an A7R III. I'd want both cameras. If I had to choose just one camera, to be honest, I still probably would go for the A9. That's if I had to choose one. But that's me talking, because I still will be using that 80% of the time, because 24 megapixels for me is the perfect number. But that 1/32,000th of a second as well that I can shoot with the electronic shutter is a game changer for me to shoot that depth of field 1.4 in daylight. Rick said, hi there from Brooklyn. Hi, Rick. How are you? Mel said the A7 III will have to be released by next year. They will, probably the same by spring, and fill that 1.8 to 2,000 slot. It'll happen. We've just got to wait, guys, for it to come out. Bring on the A6 700. That's what I'm mostly excited about. I'm really hoping they bring that out, and I'm hoping it has a tilt screen. I'm hoping that it has, you know, the articulating screen, fully articulating. And you never know, they might give us 4K 60 in it. That would be fantastic. That's the camera I think will be ending up competing with the GH5, because it's a similar price range. So they have to make that A6 700 compete with the GH5. What else have we got? Bring on the A6 7, that's what I just mentioned. Sniper V said, wonder if the colour science of the A7R... Well, they did say, I know Kai just commented about it on the video this morning, that he definitely could see the colour had improved. So they have done it. I would be surprised if it's not the same as the A9. The A9 colour science is the best I've ever used. It is so close to what Canon colours are that it's the best I've ever used. And I'm sure the A7R III probably has that same colour science. But we still have to wait. But I know Kai did say that it was better. Sony is drip feeding us like Apple does. Apple, I've got to order the new iPhone this afternoon. 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. here it is this afternoon. What else have we got? OMG said Sony will eventually make a manual MF. Yeah, he's talking about the larger sensor. That's still going to come out. Yeah, definitely they're going to do one eventually. It's just a matter of time. David, would it be a bad idea to purchase the 85 1.8 or the 85 GM when I have the Sony 90 macro that I use for portraits? I love that lens. Yeah, because the 90mm is slow. That's the issue. But I don't know. If you have the 90 macro, I'd probably tend to get the 35 1.4 before I got the 85. That's if you can't afford many lenses, Thor. If you can't, I'd probably get the 35 1.4 before I got the 85 because they're very similar in their focal lengths. But clearly, if you had to buy one of those and money was an issue, I'd just get the 85 1.8. But I wouldn't get that if you've got the 90 macro and you can only afford one lens. Rick said Photo Plus was so-so, not much there, Rick, at all. Aldrich said, I'm waiting for reviews on the Samyang 35 just announced. It'll probably be a really nice lens. Mel said, besides Fuji and other Sony sensors customers, no need to compete with them at this time, but a good way to test them for their sensors. Delta Dave said, why do they say you can't use flash with electronic shutter? It just doesn't work, Dave. It doesn't sync. That's the issue. You have to have a sync speed, and they don't sync with electronic shutter, so they won't work. If I'm using any flash on it with the electronic shutter, it doesn't fire, so you can't use it. High Energy Research said, David, do you think there'll be the new 24-105 FG lens will compare to the 18? Yes, I do. From what I've seen in the quick reviews so far, they're all saying it's amazing, and I love that lens, the 18-105. So that lens definitely interests me for the full frame. Mel said, yes, A7, A7S, and A7R serve different price points, but to release them simultaneously will cause a shock to many. It may, but I think they're still going to sell bucket loads of these cameras, and they must know what they're doing. Altric said, there are already reviews with demo pictures out, and the Sammy should be a killer. That's right, they're talking about the 35 1.4. I don't think it'll focus as quick as the 35 1. The Sony one, though, but we'll wait and see. What else have we got? Mel said, history of any companies also shows they don't release two or more of the same kind about the same time. What else? Medium format is ready for a broader market. Yeah, I don't know if medium format is because it's so slow. I've shot medium format, guys, before. I used to shoot medium format film. It's a very slow process too. There's no way you can use these for sort of weddings and stuff like that because it really is slow. It's not for me, but I mean, if you want ultimate resolution, it's a way to go, but it's certainly not for me. It's not something I'd be interested in getting. Matt Fan said Corona is Mexican beer as Foster's is Australian beer. That's right, it is. I might have a Foster or something next time. I'm not sure. I do love Corona though. David, I read the A7R grip is identical to the A9 one. Okay, there you go. So you can use the A9 grip. Mel said, haters will always find faults, even the smallest insignificant ones. The path for Sony is simple. Just keep releasing great products. And you know what? It's interesting, guys, because it really is interesting in the fact that you would not believe the hate that I get in my videos that I release. And I'm only showing people what the Sony cameras and everything can do. But every video, I'm just getting hate all the time. And they'd be from people like Canon, Nikon shooters that just hate the Sony system. And the interesting thing is these people never ever have any work. I often say to them, show me your work. If you're criticising my work, show me yours, and then I might understand if it's better than mine. They never have any work, and they never get back to me. Haters are haters, and they just hate the fact that there's something out there that they haven't got. It does my head in sometimes. Mel said, is the A7R III body more like the A7 family or more like the A9? More like the A9. If it fits the same battery grip as the A9, it must be more like the A9. The battery grip the actual grip of the camera must be bigger to house that battery. It just doesn't have the dials on the top, which I love. I love having those dials on the top of the A9. I'd show you, but it's in for repair. I love having those dials on the top for setting your focus, you know, your AFC and AFS, and also for doing your shutter, like fast shutter and slow shutter and single exposure, stuff like that. It's great to have that on the top of the camera. I love that feature on the A9. Mel said, if I were only to have one lens for the Sony A7, it would be the 35 1.4. I'm the same. I love that 35 1.4. What else? We're going to have to go in a minute, guys, because it's been over an hour. Mav Fan said, I have the A9. I'm keeping it. Yeah, there's no way I'd sell my A9, not for anything. A10, perhaps, but definitely not an A7R III. Let's have a look. Jim Penn said, if you place an order for the A7R III, I will consider buying your R2. I'm not selling it. There's no way, Jim. I'm not at this stage. And you know what? Like I just said to you before, I may not even sell. If I buy the A7R III, I might keep my A7 II because of the Play Memories hack app on it. That's important for me that I can keep shooting longer if I need to. So I don't know whether I'll sell it now after I've heard that the A7R III hasn't got the Play Memories apps on it. What else have we got? When you say you recommend the 35 1.4, is that the Sony? Yes, it is. Yes, it's the Sony 35 1.4 ZA. I love it. That's my favourite lens I've got, to be honest. The only thing that Sony lacks at this point on the market is a camera that can do 4K 60, and it'll come. It will have to come to compete with the GH5. For sure it will kill the GH5. Well, I don't know whether it'll kill it or not, because you're talking... That GH5 cost me $3,000. Now, if for instance Sony brings out a A9S, that's probably going to be $5,000. You know, easily US, I think. So it may not kill it. It'll probably hurt it though. I'd love it. I would love to use one with the 4K 60. I'd definitely be something that I would think about getting. Aldrich said goodbye to my Canon 1DX. Yeah, get rid of it. Go Sony, mate. I've never regretted moving over to Sony from Nikon. Canon will not sit still with all of this. Sony's battle will be another 5 to 7 years. What else have we got? It's Nisar said, sometimes I wish Sony would design a camera body more like a 1DX or a D5. I got over that big camera body size. I used to have the D4S and I had the D4. Look, I liked it at the time, but as soon as I went back to the Sony, I love that camera size. And to be honest, when I had the 5D Mark IV the other day, I hated that camera body size now. I just love the feel of the Sony size. I hope they are able to keep it small. It's just something that I love. Last few questions, guys, and then I better have some lunch. Mel said, don't worry about the haters. We love you. We love your bald head. What else? And your eyeglasses. We love your chats. You're my brother. Thanks so much, Mel. That's great. Mike said, David, on the Sammy 1.435, 1.450 AF focus is extremely fast on my A6 500, not as fast on my A7 II. Mike said, no, the haters don't have a life, and they don't. I know, that's the thing. I don't worry about them. The more successful you become, the more hate you get, which is interesting. I just ignore it now, basically. I usually just delete the comments now. I get so many, and I just delete them because I just can't be bothered with them. Sometimes if you argue with them, you're giving something back, so I'll often just delete it. Manuel said, Brad, you are right, but it's the same thing. We are seeing a new car market. Kia is now 30k plus, and others don't think about getting them. Sony is more like Telsa than Hyundai. Yes, they are. So look, guys, if you haven't been able to obviously catch me live, leave any questions down in the comment box down below and I will get back to you. Please give me a thumbs up if you can. I'll have more videos coming up shortly showing some of these smoke shoots that I've also done and things like that. There are going to be some really interesting shoots that I'm actually going to show you. And that's the one thing I can say about to you guys, that when you're watching my shoots, I'm probably one of the few YouTubers out there that's actually showing paid shoots. 99.9% of my shoots that I'm showing you are actually models that have paid me. They're not free shoots where I've advertised to get free models to do shoots. So they actually are full-on shoots. And that's important for me to show you that, how they're working in real life scenarios. So, you know, it's something that I love to do and I love to give you back. Please also like my Facebook group because that's starting to grow now and you're seeing a lot of the behind the scenes. I posted a stack of behind the scenes shoots from my smoke shoot that I did the other day. And you'll also see a lot of before and after shots that I show in there too. So please like my Facebook group as well. But that's about it, guys, for today. I'm going to log off because we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes or something. You can actually, well, the chat will be on this. It'll be on the video, Mel. So it does show what we've showed here. And so you will see that on the video. So that goes through as well. So please, if you can, give me a thumbs up, like what you've seen. And obviously, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I'll see you all again for the next video very, very soon. I'm going to go and have another Corona and a bit of lunch. G'day, guys. It's all finished. I need another one. And I'll catch you all again soon. Bye, guys.